Hi guys, I'm Maylin Dovan, certified athletic therapist and founder of Rehab-U Movement and Performance Therapy. Welcome to our YouTube channel. This week we're going to talk about sports-related groin pain. So change of direction and reaching injuries that involve hip extension, abduction, and external rotation are pretty common in soccer, but also in a lot of other sports, hockey, lacrosse, any sport really where you're changing direction, you're going to be at risk of having that very quick change of direction that involves that hip extension, abduction, and external rotation, and is really difficult on the adductor muscles, on the groin. Hey guys, thanks for watching our videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, hip and groin symptoms, groin pain, hip and groin symptoms, like I said, are really prevalent in soccer, but also in many other sports. And there are a lot of factors that contribute to that, like previous groin injury, right? But another factor that can contribute to that is hip range of motion. Now, a 2015 study in the American Journal of Sports Medicine showed that professional soccer players who had limited range of motion, that correlated with more reports of hip and groin pain symptoms. So what really do we need to do in a strategy to kind of address, whenever something is pretty prevalent in a sport, it becomes pretty interesting to have a prevention strategy. So what can we look at to kind of decrease the risk injury? What risk factors are we able to identify that we can actually modify, that are modifiable, that are trainable? And one of those is hip range of motion. Now, I've done a previous video on hip range of motion because obviously it's going to impact a lot of things in the dynamic sports environment. So make sure that you head to the YouTube channel and check out that hip mobility video, because you have some assessments there and exercises to improve hip mobility. That said, whenever we increase range of motion, so hip range of motion, we need to be concerned with controlling that range of motion, because while it's a great thing to have range of motion, what we don't want is momentum taking athletes outside of their range of motion. So they need to have a lot of strength through that range of motion. And this is typically where anti-rotation exercises come in, right? Because you can manipulate them to put athletes in different positions, and you can create anti-rotation mid-range, you can create anti-rotation beginning of the range, you can create anti-rotation end of the range. So you're really able to access whatever part of the range of motion that you're really trying to control, right? So let's look at an anti-rotation exercise here that involves the adductors. Okay, so we're going to get our athlete into a what I call split position. He's not actually going to do the splits, but he's getting us into as much of an abducted position as possible, feet parallel, and from there he's doing his anti-rotation hold. Okay, so he's just doing a wide stance horizontal chop hold. Now, a lot of times you'll see this as an actual chop. We've just decided to put him in this anti-rotation static position, getting that length in the adductors, getting the hips to resist rotation, but also in that really lengthened end range position. So this just makes the anti-rotation a little bit more specific to what we're trying to work in prevention of the mechanics that we understand about reaching injuries. Now we want to load those exercises. So again, we want to work on how load is going to be absorbed, distributed, and transferred. Now, you could go really adductor specific again here, and we do have another video on the blog about adductor function and strength, so you could check out some of those exercises. We're going to show you something that works more into hip rotation. Either way, whenever you're moving your hip, you can be pretty sure that your adductors are involved. So we're going to still be able to target the adductors here. So we're going to do a loaded Bulgarian landmine rotation. So in this case, we're using a load, and we're doing the exercise in a slow and controlled manner. So he's loading that left hip, and then he's going to rotate into the hip, letting the torso rotate as well, and then other side. absorbing. And you can bend that back knee a bit more if you need to. Yes. Turn that torso. Good. He just needs a little bit more hip mobility work prior to doing this. That's what's going on here. All right, perfect. And then we want to move on to a dynamic exercise. So we did a load, so we loaded the hips slow and controlled, and now we're going to want to distribute that load, okay? So we're going to go to a single leg side toss with a med ball. So the outside leg is the leg that he's loading. So when he releases that ball, go ahead. When he releases that ball, he's getting that hip abduction, extension, external rotation on that left hip. Good. Now remember, the idea is it's a quick, explosive loading and unloading of that hip. He's getting that abduction, extension, external rotation in a quick, explosive manner, quick eccentric stretch of the adductors, similar to what happens when you're reaching, for example, in that reaching injury mechanics. So essentially, when we're talking about groin pain, hip and groin symptoms, adductor injuries for reaching injuries, there are risk factors, right? Like hip range of motion. And then there are also ways to better prepare our athletes. So there's gotta be more than band hip adduction exercises, for example, and more than just even loaded adductor exercises as well. Although those are part of the process, the closer you get to return to participation or return to play, the more you need to kind of optimize the way loads are absorbed, distributed, and transferred, because that's the way that you're going to expose those tissues to similar stresses, similar speeds, similar ways of firing than what they're going to see in the sporting environment. Okay, so there's always a natural progression and process of using isolated exercises and then loaded exercises and then dynamic loaded exercises to better prepare those tissues, better prepare those athletes for what's coming and make them more efficient even from a performance standpoint. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't yet, and we will see you next week.